Welcome to Beyond the OR with Dr. Kevin Brenner. I'm a board-certified plastic surgeon in Beverly Hills. I want to take you beyond my world of plastic surgery, diving deep into exciting hot topics and delving even deeper into compelling characters that I've met along the way. We'll be talking with attorneys, actors, comedy writers, Navy SEALs, and many other fascinating and inspiring people with truly intriguing stories to share. So let's jump right in. Welcome back to Beyond the OR. Today we have a really special show for you. I have the honor and privilege of having a friend of mine on the show, but someone that you guys probably know or have heard of. We've been in the works trying to get him on the show for a couple of years now. Our guest is a Navy SEAL, but not just any Navy SEAL. He started from a humble childhood in Alaska, made his way to the Navy, to Coronado, through BUDS, onto SEAL Team 5, and then screened for SEAL Team 6, was on SEAL Team 6, and was on a mission you may have heard of called Neptune's Spear. Welcome to the show, Mark.
Glad to be here.
It is, honestly, and I've told you this before, it's just, I'm so humbled and, honored to be not only have a talking relationship with you, but actually have a friendship with you, because I knew about you well before I knew you.
And I got to say, Mark, of all the interviews that we've done, Dr. Brenner has been excited pretty much about all of them. But this interview is something that he really wholeheartedly was really dying to have. As a fan of yours and a friend, but this opportunity is really an amazing opportunity.
I've mentioned before, and I know you both know this, I don't do a lot of these, and I only do them with people that I trust and appreciate. So that's, it just took a while to get this scheduled. But
so do you trust or appreciate me?
one or the other. I don't know if it's both.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's.
But here we are.
Yeah.
But here we are. All right. So we have a lot of ground to cover.
Okay.
I know you've been through this a zillion times, but your story is so interesting and convoluted and chock full of really cool stuff. I want to start with you decide to leave the Navy.
Okay.
We're going to pick up Captain Phillips, and we're going to pick up Osama bin Laden later on the show, but you leave the Navy. Why did you leave the Navy? You had been on SEAL Team 5 and then SEAL Team 6 for...
I've been in the teams 14 years. So I got out at the 14-year mark.
Okay.
During those 14 years, I did 13 back-to-back deployments. My longest break was going through the 9-month selection and training process to get into my former unit.
Green Team.
Yeah, which is not a break at all by any stretch of the imagination, but that was my longest break. You're in the military, you got to do 20 years to get a pension or retirement. I knew that. Everybody's very well aware of that. But as I looked around and looked at a lot of the senior guys above me, they were on their second divorce, and I don't know. I got to the point where I'd checked all the boxes off that I wanted to check. I knew if I stayed in the Navy any longer, I'd move more into the administrative side of things, which is very clearly what I avoided my whole career. I wanted to stay operational. That's where all the fun was happening. Staying in for the retirement numbers aren't stellar by any stretch of the imagination. I just got to the point where I was like, all right, I'd done everything I needed to do in my career. We'd just taken out the big man. My very first deployment, 9/11 happened. The last operation I was on, my helicopter crash landed into the compound. So it seemed like...
Oh, was that the last mission you were on? You didn't do anything after that?
Nothing. Last deployment. That was literally, I had a whole bunch of neck problems. So there were a lot of things that added up to me saying, okay, looking at my career, this was kind of good bookends to, hey, maybe it's time for me to get out.
Had you always had love for the military? Is this something you always wanted to do, is be in the military? How did you get into the military?
I was a young punk junior high kid who read a book for a book report in middle school.
What was
So,
that book? Do you remember?
Men with Green Faces. Oh geez, and I'm going to forget the author real quick, but Men with Green Faces. About the SEALs in
It was
Vietnam.
anonymous. It was anonymous.
Yeah.
No, I've actually met him. I've got a photo
You
with
did,
him.
right? Because
Yep.
he was speaking at some engagement.
Yep,
in the
yep.
in the
I connected
Midwest
with
or
him
something?
in Reno, Nevada.
Oh, in Reno.
And
Close
yeah,
enough.
close. But got to meet him, shake his hand. He wrote the book, right? That kind of set me on my path. So
What about that book set you on your path? What?
it just seemed like the hardest, craziest stuff I could read, right? That was my first book I read. I was like,
Right.
wow, the SEAL team stuff sounds pretty crazy. I was in Alaska in a remote village, so like running around with a gun and playing around the water, hunting things, all of that seemed very natural to me. So I read this first book. I'm like, all right, this sounds pretty cool. Sounds like a big challenge. And I didn't know what I didn't know. I'm in a village in Alaska.
Right.
I drove a snowmobile to school every morning.
Oh my goodness.
The internet wasn't hopping at that point.
But why the Navy? Why the SEAL teams?
Well, because then I proceeded to read every other Army, Navy, Air Force book out
why
there.
Not Delta Force? Why not? Why?
Because the SEALs, in
it's
my
just cool. It's cool, right?
estimation and all of my research, seemed to be the hardest. It seemed to be the most challenging.
It still seems to be the hardest, right?
Well, I'll let others rank it, but yeah, it's pretty challenging.
And you're like, this is what I want to do for a living?
Yeah. Well, I'm like, all right, what do I do after high school? And I wanted to join the military. Nobody in my family had ever been in the military, no service. My parents were missionaries. So I'd kind of learned the service mentality from my parents serving as missionaries in Alaska. So I got the kind of service mentality. I told them I wanted to join the Navy after high school. They said, no, you got to get like an education. You got to go to college. So I went to college in LA. And then as soon as I graduated, I enlisted.
And then you leave Abbottabad, you fly back to Jalalabad. You're there for a couple hours, right? Or a day or a couple days. How long were you there before?
JBAD, maybe an hour. And then we flew to Bagram.
And then you came home right away, or was that the end of your tour? Like you were just there just for that?
Yeah. Like I don't count if I say 13 deployments, the Bin Laden mission, the Captain Phillips, neither of those even count for the 13. Those are extras. 13 means 13 where you deploy and you're gone for a minimum of 90 days. I did 6-month deployments. I did a whole bunch of 3-month deployments, but minimum of 90 days to count as a deployment.
So, and that mission was in May of 2011. You decided to leave. How long?
I got out that December.
In December,
January
of 20
on terminal leave.
January of 2012.
Yep.
Of 2012. Okay.
Terminal leave. Yep.
And then you're like, I want to write this book. I need to tell everyone about this. Right. So you authored, and we have it right here. No Easy Day.
Yep.
Right. Why?
Excellent question, Kevin. Excellent question.
I mean, listen, because the reason I'm asking this is, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I know you'll correct me if I'm wrong. Everything I've read, learned, everyone who's in special forces, like, right, there's a shroud of secrecy around it, and there certainly was.
Hold on, a shroud of secrecy around what?
Around the teams and operational security.
What secrecy and security?
No, there was up until the Bin Laden mission, right?
Mm-hmm. Captain Phillips happened before that. There's plenty of press about the SEALs. There's been, I would argue, I've been reading about the SEALs since Vietnam. They've been in high profile. This isn't like, so top secret the Navy SEALs don't exist. We've been hearing about them from every single conflict.
Right,
since
but we didn't really know a lot before that. Before 2011, we really did.
I read a ton of books.
We, as I would say, we the general public didn't know a lot. You were living it, so you were interested in it, so you grabbed everything you could. Right. The general public didn't know. We knew about it, but didn't really know about it.
I think it was a cross between as the internet came out and just the mass content that you can find on the internet. One, before that, it was only books and guys like me who sought it out. The content's always been there. It's how you find it. I think it's gotten more publicized after Bin Laden, clearly because it was such a big traumatic event for our country.
Right.
And now to say, hey, we've got Bin Laden, every news source out there wanted to meet a Navy SEAL. And that now all of a sudden
but not just any Navy SEAL. There was 24 of you on the mission, right?
Yes.
So they wanted to talk to the guys who were there. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
No.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Right?
Absolutely.
And,
but
and you were primed for that because you
was
were
there.
running point, right? I mean, you were up on the 3rd floor.
I was involved, heavily involved in the mission as everybody else was.
Right.
Back to your point, or back to your question. Why did I write the book? Listen, within, we already talked about how there's been books about the SEALs and the special operations since I was in junior high. This is not a new thing to happen.
Right.
I knew within 2 weeks after the mission that they were doing the Zero Dark 30 movie.
Right.
We had Leon Panetta approved the whole movie. Right. We go to retirement ceremony at Langley, Virginia, and Panetta introduces us to Catherine Bigelow and Mark Bowl, the Hollywood producers for the Zero Dark 30 movie, within 2 weeks of the raid.
Oh my God.
So we knew there was movies coming out. I had been hit up by other authors writing a book about all of this.
How true to the word was Zero Dark 30? It seems like it was pretty.
He dies in the end.
No, I'm just in terms of the
accuracy of it,
of the mission. Yeah. I mean,
like I said, he dies at the end. I mean,
like you watch it. You watch that movie, and you're like, can you picture in your mind?
Yeah.
Same thing.
I've only watched it once and never again, but
I've watched it many times. I'm a little bit obsessive about that stuff.
He's obsessed with Navy SEAls.
So it's because it's like so interesting to me. It's like I could never do it. I listen, I had a lot of stamina to go through the training I went through, but it's completely different. It's
where you
aren't
set your
shooting
commitment
bullets.
level. You chose, I could not be a doctor, wouldn't have done it, right? My sister's a teacher. Not in a million years could I handle kids in a classroom and being a teacher. I think it's where you put your commitment level. And I don't care who you are and what you do, commitment's commitment.
Okay. So
you could have done fine.
Maybe. Although I do have flat feet, so who knows? Okay. So why you? Why were you the first one to pen a book?
I was getting out. I was, I knew I wanted to tell the story. I wanted to do it in the right way. I had heard all these other stories coming out by other people, and definitely pointing all the credit to other people, and nobody in any of those versions that were coming out. And there was every version of the Bin Laden mission was leaked within 12 hours, and by none of the SEALs that were on the mission, a whole bunch of politicians and everybody else who was claiming for their own,
glory,
moment of greatness.
Yes.
Where the 24 of us who actually risked our lives, nobody was saying anything. And so as somebody who's grown up reading books and certainly lived the life, I wanted to tell it and tell it in the best way I could. That's why I've chosen the fake name, and I don't show my face. And there's a whole bunch of reasons for why I've gone about doing things the way I have.
Yeah. For those of you who are listening to this and not watching it on YouTube, I haven't addressed the elephant in the room, but you can't see Mark because he doesn't like his face shown. Some might argue because they can't handle how handsome he is. But,
nobody's arguing that.
So was there talk amongst your teammates about that in any capacity? Like
about what?
About like
telling the story?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I talked to multiple guys before I wrote it.
And what was the general consensus?
It's like, hey, we need to tell the story. It was already leaking at all the higher up levels, and it was for all their own good. And so the guys I talked to were like, hey, let's do it the right way. And the right way in my mind was, hey, not be the individual out in front of this saying, hey, look at me, I've done any of this. Fake name, right? My neighbors have no clue who I am. I'm not asking for any credit for
because
any of
I've
this.
heard other people speak publicly about it, right? And this was both before and after I knew you, about the very much condemning the fact that you even did it.
Yeah,
right? And you got a lot of flack for it.
There's a contingent that tried to character assassinate me because I wrote a book. They didn't ask questions. They didn't ask anything. They was just automatic, hey, he wrote a book, let's crush him. I could list on two hands all of the special operators from Delta Force to SEALs to Army Green Berets who've written books since mine came out. So the whole narrative that special operators don't talk, I say is bullshit. I think it was just a targeted assassination because of the timing of it. My book came out before the presidential election.
Well, and I would also imagine, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the amount of what you Navy SEALs go through to get to where you're at mentally, physically. I mean, that is something that, you know, I can't even imagine, you know, and I hear the stories and literally my palms start sweating. You know, you guys are a very special team. It takes very special people to
Definitely
have
special.
that mind.
Different kind of special. Crazy kind of special.
Definitely special.
And so I can see why you've dedicated your life to this. Why wouldn't you want to write a book and tell the real story of it's out there already, right? It's already, so why not get the story from, I would say, the horse's mouth?
I think that was a key component of it. Everybody else was telling it for their versions, right? And the reasons they were approved was because it was an election year. And
Exactly.
the powers that play at the top of our government and decision makers, they're very good at patting their own backs and telling all their own great heroic stories of their decision making.
Right.
Nobody at my level was trying to tell the story in the right way. And so that's all I tried to do, was tell the story in the right way, not take credit for it, make it about the team, and disappear.
Right.
My real name leaked, and then all the drama went from there. Not one person ever asked me, how did we even get to the point of publishing the book without the government knowing, right? I hired an attorney. I followed that attorney's advice to a T. We had all the government stuff. I've since sued that attorney for his advice. That's what caused a lot of the
because he gave you
drama.
bad advice. I mean, he fucked you over on that.
That would be a very clear way to say it.
Yes.
Very clear way to put it. Yeah. I mean, I'm like, hey, I'm going to write this book. I already knew that Panetta had authorized the movie. I already knew that President Obama was giving interviews for his book. All these things were supposed to come out before the election. I clearly knew this was a delicate topic. So the first person I hired was an attorney, a former SOCOM attorney who'd represented a Delta Force officer who wrote a book about bin Laden. First guy I hired on my team, and then listened to his advice. In my, what do they call it? The letter you get from the attorney that when you sign him on, your
The retainer.
yeah, he actually spells out in his letter that he can clear it for me and he can do all these things. So I followed his advice to a T. When the book came out and the government went high and right, I hired a second attorney, re-engaged with the government, cooperated, went through everything, and then sued my attorney, won, got an apology letter from him. But the government and all the headlines that came out at the time, that's said and done.
Well, I want to pick up where you said something that your name got leaked. So can you tell us a little bit about that? Wasn't it in 2012? Was it
Right, so
Fox?
this-
It was
it was-
10 minutes after the book came out, basically.
Right. On Fox?
It was a Fox News producer on the online side that ran the story with my real name.
And how do you think that happened? Because you went to great lengths.
Anybody could have read it that knows me and be like, oh, that's.
No, I know, but like you think one of your teammates?
I wouldn't say my teammates, but somebody in somebody in Naval Special Warfare that knew enough about me and tied two and two together and was like, oh yeah, that's.
Well, that sucks.
No, well,
I mean,
I don't think so, because I think
it is what it is.
Do you feel
that's fine?
Did this almost compel you or motivate you to want to keep writing it and want to keep telling stories?
No. Yeah, no. The process of all the drama on the first one did not make me want to encourage me to keep telling stories. No, not initially at all.
Okay.
Not initially. It's come around and now it's very therapeutic. Clearly I've written a second book. I'm working on a third one now.
Right.
It's been very therapeutic and I'm gonna have to use my third one to pay off my first one anyway. So.
You're still paying it down, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, the DOD kind of screwed you over on that one big time.
Well, no, my attorney screwed me over on that.
The DOD, but the DOD sued you, right?
Nope.
Wasn't it department?
Nope.
What?
Nope, nothing. No, never a lawsuit, never anything. Just a whole bunch of threats and accusations. And 5 years later, they said, look, there's not even anything classified in the book. You didn't leak anything classified. Nothing in there. You just failed to seek pre-publication review.
Okay.
I said, okay. Well, that
was
why
the only reason.
The only reason. I said, well, the only reason I made that decision was because I hired the attorney, and here's all the emails to prove
They don't care.
They don't care.
And so
doesn't support their narrative.
And so the financial penalty for that was what? Right?
Well, they wanted all the book money back from No Easy Day.
Okay.
So, okay. Well, let's back up. The book did very well, sold a ton of copies.
It was a New York Times bestseller.
It claim to fame, it took down 50 Shades of Grey off the #1 New York Times.
And that was hard to do
And we got
at
no
the
sex
time.
in my book. So, but we took down
It's
50
sexy,
Shades of
it's
Grey off
sexy,
the
but
#1.
there's no sex.
Um,
Um,
I don't know where I was going with that. I'm sorry.
Financial penalty.
Oh,
You had to
yeah.
pay-
So the
you're-
book,
you're paying.
the
you
book
had-
did really well. It made some money. So what does the government do if they're coming after you? They outspend you.
right.
They outspend you, and that's no joke, right? And I had no retirement, no pension, no anything I got a plaque with my name misspelled after my 14 years of service. So
wow.
so
Thank you.
they outspend. Yeah, thanks. So they outspend you on lawyers. So thankfully, I had all the money from the book, so I could pay my
To defend
attorneys to
yourself.
keep fighting the government, the DOJ, who
Right.
they'd disappear and then come back, and 6 months later they'd come back and forth and back and forth. And so I spent over $1 million in 5 years on my legal back and forth. And if I didn't have the book money, I would have had to settle. I wouldn't have had the money to fight my own government on these bullshit claims. And so
Wow.
5
So,
years
by the
in,
way-
then they came back and said, okay, we're done. Just give us all the book money back. Well,
Mm.
I'd spent over $1 million of it. And so
I mean, I believe you on the $1 million.
no, the lawsuit stuff was no joke. And I dealt with that for over 5 years. And then I sued my attorney, and then I've gone back to the government, and it's been a nightmare.
But it's
Wow.
like this is like someone who had your back for 15 years, right? Or someone.
Did they
government.
ever really have my
Well,
back?
They trained you. They
The
paid you,
government
trained
never
you.
had
How
my
much?
back.
How much money do you estimate that?
That I made? Maybe
that-
60 grand a year? Maybe?
No.
What? Bringing in the big bucks.
How much? 60 whole.
70 grand a year
That's
might have
awesome.
topped me out. when I was-
Wait, by the way, that's more than I made when I was a surgery resident.
All right.
And the hours were similar.
I get it.
After all this after everything you've had to go through after your book comes out, what do you want your readers to come out knowing or feeling when they read your book?
I think just authenticity with any of them, period. With anything I'm putting out or saying or writing.
Right.
Whether it's I didn't set out to teach anybody anything with No Easy Day, and I think people have pulled stuff out of it. No Hero was much more of, hey, these are all the mistakes that I've made. These are lessons that I've learned. Maybe they translate, and that's been good. And
Has
then
it
the
been
one
therapeutic to you also?
For sure.
Do you feel like, do you have any PTSD, let's say, from, going to war? My cousin is in the military, and he suffers really bad from PTSD. He was deployed
Right.
like 13 times. And how has that affected you at all? And if it hasn't, how?
I
and-
drool a little bit, and I have some crazy
Well,
other ticks. and-
We've talked about it before, right? I mean, PTSD, but what you said was what Tyler Gray told you, right?
Yeah. So there's a very good friend of mine. He's actually on the TV show,
Right.
former Army Tier 1 unit guy named Tyler Gray. He's a phenomenal individual, and we were working together on the SEAL Team show. And he's like, listen, we don't have PTSD, right? We have LTSD.
What is that?
Okay, Tyler, what's LTSD? He's like, well, we have lack of traumatic stress disorder. I'm like, okay, well, explain that. He's like, well, think about it. I was in the military 14 years, 13 deployments. My Monday, Wednesday, Friday was me and my friends are going to go to your house. We're going to pick the lock on your door. You've got 10 friends with guns inside, and we're going to sneak in the house, and we're going to sort that out. Like Monday, Wednesday, Friday
Oh my
for a
God.
decade. So what you find out is the longer you do that, the more calm in the chaos you become. And that's just your norm. It's not like it's a chaotic, crazy night. It's just your normal, you go to work.
Right. How do
Wow.
So then you leave the military. That's your baseline, right? So guys in the
and-
special operations community, we now get out
Right.
and we have lack of traumatic stress. We're not raiding houses anymore every
Right.
Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Well, hopefully not.
Well, yeah. But
Not
what's
in the States, right?
what's fascinating back to Tyler, right, is you take a guy like him and put him in the chaos of a TV set with hundreds of people running around trying to do stuff, and Tyler's in his happy
He's
place
thriving.
because he's back in the
In the
chaos that
chaos.
he was used to. He doesn't have to be getting shot at chaos, but just chaos nonetheless.
You realize that perhaps one of your books might have the effect that you had when you were 15 years old and read the book.
I know they have. That's one of the coolest things about all of this. And I have an Instagram account. I hate social media, but I do it just so I can talk to these young kids who want to join. And I've probably got 10 or more kids who've read the books, whatever, joined the Navy, now somewhere at my former command, Some of them have, done their career. Now they're getting out and moving on to different things. So I know that we've definitely had an effect.
So how do you now come back into when you're in that chaos, right? And you come back home? What's that adjustment like? What
I'm trying to
take
figure
us-
that one out.
You're like,
Yeah.
gotta run
I'll
carpool.
I'll let you know when I figure it out. Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, carpool can be pretty crazy in the morning.
It can be.
Hey,
It's a high stress environment.
Those Ritalin moms aren't joking around.
Well, I know I've told Kevin this story before, but I volunteered at a local elementary school for this like dad's program. They come in and help out at the school, and so I go volunteer at the front office at the school. They have no idea my background. They just know I'm one of the dads.
Oh my God.
They're like, hey,
this is amazing.
can you work as part of your dad duty today? Can we give you this reflective vest and the stop sign? And can you go work the crossing guard? Sure. I'm overqualified for this, but it's going to be a safe intersection. Okay. I'm doing my duty.
Maybe you don't understand. I've been in green face and camouflage for the last 20 years.
Oh my God.
Now I'm
putting me
reflective vest
in
and
an
the stop
orange
sign.
reflective vest.
So I'm working the crossing guard and the intersection, and I see this guy walking up. He'd parked his car some distance away. He had a kid in each, holding each hand, and he walks across the crosswalk, and he has a SEAL Team 6 hat on.
I love it.
I'm like, man, we don't really have those hats, right? We don't sell those hats. We don't wear those. We have squadron hats. It's a whole different thing. So I let him go into the school, drops the kids off. Now he's coming back out. So I'm going to talk to him clearly. I'm not going to just let him go.
Right.
So I let the traffic now start passing, and I'm standing there. He's standing next to me.
He's like, why is this guy not moving the stop sign?
Why is the crossing guard staring at me so weird? I'm like, hey man, I like your hat. Were you in the teams? Like, yeah, I was. I'm like, wow, Team 6? Those guys are the ones that got bin Laden. You weren't a part of that, were you? And he literally looks around left and right like he's all serious. He's like, well, I don't like to talk about it, but I was. So without me breaking eye contact, I was like, no shit. So was I. And I just keep staring at him.
And so what?
And I
what
just
did
keep staring at him.
What was his face like when you said
Well, he was
that?
confused because he's clearly thinking the crossing guard is fucking with him.
He thinks you're fucking with him. Right.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm like, no, seriously, I was on Chalk 1. I don't remember seeing you there. Which bird were you on? And he couldn't answer. And then I'm like, well, actually, who was the Master Chief? And what Bud's class? All right, a couple quick questions, and he didn't have any. And then
Did you safely walk him across this crosswalk, or did you just kind of help him out there
like
a little?
Try not to kill him in the parking lot of the school with your stop sign.
So how did you end it?
We left amicably. There was a.
But he didn't say anything?
He'll never wear that hat again.
There was words communicated. He took off his hat and left.
He started backpedaling?
I think he was just.
The guy was on the third floor, man.
He didn't give me any details, but he wouldn't admit guilt. He just backed away as quickly as he could and was just needed to leave.
And I assume you never saw him again?
I've seen him twice more at the school.
No way.
Never with a hat. He won't talk to me. He just keeps
Good. He's probably scared of you.
He probably hired a private investigator to follow you.
He's so worried that crossing guard's lying to him.
That's great. So that was No Easy Day. What was the time interval between that and No Hero?
A couple years, I believe. I'm horrible with dates.
And you wrote No Hero because why? What did you feel was missing? Apart from the fact that you had all of the proceeds stolen from you from the first book.
Well, No Hero 1, I was paying a ton of money towards legal bills, and I needed to help cover that. But then I got such a positive response from the people who read it, honestly, and got a lot of takeaways from No Easy Day, and I got a lot of comments and had a lot of good interaction with folks who read it. I was like, well, maybe I should follow up with some more of my lessons learned. I didn't know what I didn't know. I'd never lived in the civilian world.
Right.
People talk about, you got to retransition into civilian life after the military. I'm like, I never lived in this. College doesn't count. Then I joined the military.
Sort of,
Yeah.
And now I got out. I didn't know how to retransition.
Yeah,
So
I mean, because No Easy Day is interesting if you're interested in that mission, no doubt. This is much more personal, right? I mean, this really, there were a couple of stories you tell in No Hero that I freaking love. My favorite, and I still use this. And I think you signed one of the books with us, is your chapter on living in your 3-foot world.
You just like it because I'm afraid of heights.
Well,
You're afraid of
was.
heights?
there's that.
No.
I mean, he jumps at 35,000 feet,
Yeah,
right?
but that's different than rock climbing.
That's true. But what can you kind of go through what that means?
So the story he's referring to is in No Hero, and it's example of one of the ones that I look back on my SEAL career. I'm like, okay, what mistakes I made, what lessons did I learn, and how can they translate? When you're in the teams, you can kind of pick some of the different types of training you go through. And I knew when I was a newer SEAL that anything heights related made me uncomfortable. It's a natural feeling, right? You don't just want to be a SEAL and you're fearless. Like, no, that was something that scared me. So I would sign up for these training classes, rock climbing, skydiving, whatever, so I could be forced into the stuff that scared me the most, and I'd have to figure it out. So we're in outside of Vegas, Red Rocks climbing area. We've got a world-class rock climbing instructor, and the whole team's there, and we're going to be climbing. So I start climbing this probably 300-400 foot cliff, right? I got my rope. I got all my pro. I'm going to hook into the rock so I don't die. But the further I climb, the more nervous I get. I'm getting higher. I'm looking around. I finally get like halfway up this rock face, right? Your palms are getting sweaty.
Yeah.
You're like, I can look up. I'm like, I got a ways to go. That's not helping me. I can look out and see the Vegas Strip. That's not helping me. I can look down, and all my friends are now heckling me from below, talking smack because they can see that I'm stuck and I'm not continuing to climb. So the story I talk about in No Hero, the rock climbing instructor that we'd hired, who's like professional and crazy,
Like a mountain goat.
he decides to climb up next to me. So I'm, say, 200 feet straight up this cliff.
Okay.
He climbs all the way up next to me with no rope. I've got a rope. He's got no rope. Right? Stops about 4 feet to my left, lights a cigarette, and now he's smoking a cigarette, hanging on with one hand.
Oh my God.
No rope.
Oh my God.
And he's looking at me. He's like, hey, you need to stay in your 3-foot world. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. Put your cigarette out, hook into my rope. Right, let's talk through this. He's like, no, you need to stay in your 3-foot world. And the moral of the story is I was worried about all these things outside of my control. So like in the moment on the side of this cliff, I can only reach 3 feet in any one direction. It's the only thing I have control over in my life.
Oh my God.
How much do you worry about things that you have no control over?
I suffer from anxiety all day long.
Turn on the news. Turn on the news in the morning. There's 100 things that you have no control over that you shouldn't stress about. Right. I'd seen one of these intel manuals for the Bin Laden mission that gave us a 70% chance of being shot down just on the flight there. Just the helo ride there. 70% chance you're going to die.
Like,
Could die.
Sign me up.
Could get shot down.
So how do you wrap your head around that?
Don't worry about it.
So
That's simple. Just don't worry about
So
it.
you
There's
don't-
nothing you can do about it. If you get shot out of the sky on your ride in, you're going to get shot out of the sky on the ride in. You're not the pilot.
You won't know.
He's the pilot. You won't know what hit anyway.
okay, so put us on that put us on that plane or that helicopter. Like, what are you guys talking about? Like, there's 70%
Everybody
if you're gonna,
slept on the way in.
Slept.
It's not like you slept that well the night before, so then
Right.
you're got an hour and a half where nothing's happening.
But
so
you're
you
like
might as well just-
sardines in this helo.
Pretty crap. Yeah.
Wow, unbelievable. Like, what you guys do is almost seems superhuman at times. And I was talking to another Navy SEAL that we interviewed, and the story is like literally I live so much in fear, like I have a lot of anxiety, and then I hear or talk to one of you guys or read something, and I'm like, man, that is a mindset that I wish we all could access in a way. And how do you guys access that?
I think we just go to the risks of any. We automatically know anything we're doing. The risks are life or death. Let's just start there, right? There's not really much we're doing in our line of work that's not with those risks.
So what
even
motivates you
training,
to keep
even
going?
Motivating, that's
though-
the easy part. To keep doing that was there's only a few of us. Like, I can't quit now.
Right.
Like, it was never that. It was more of Yeah, you never really need to be motivated to keep doing it, because there really
No,
wasn't.
but I mean, what keeps you like, okay, this is a life and death situation. If I say
just
this is a life
mitigate-
and death situation, I'm like, screw the death part. I'm going to go with the
You
life
just
part.
mitigate all
But-
your liability and then jump in the deep end.
Yeah, I mean,
I think that's what
there's
makes
like-
it fun
but-
is knowing the risks, making all the best decisions you can to mitigate that risk,
Right.
and then send it. Like, there's something refreshing in that, and most people don't ever just jump in the deep end. Like,
but
mitigate it and then jump in, send it.
the whole like stay in your 3-foot world, like you wrote that or you signed and wrote that in one of my books. I didn't really know. I probably was the second one. I didn't really know what that meant until I read it. But and when I read it, I was like, holy shit! Like a light bulb went off
Works.
for me, because it worked. Well, for me, it worked. You have to be that way, right? I mean, but like it really, because like I'll be operating and thinking about 10 different things. This patient, that patient, you know, I have to get this in, taxes, whatever it is. But like when you're in, whether you have someone shooting at you with an AK-47, or if you have someone asleep on the OR table, like you have to stay focused. Like you got to stay focused on that. Like, what can I control
That's
now?
it.
And you can't freak out, because it doesn't do you any favors, and it's not doing anyone else around you any favors if you freak out.
Yep.
And so that kind of whole philosophy has really helped me, believe it or not. So you had No Easy Day, you had No Hero, and then you're in the middle of your third memoir. Is the third one a memoir as well?
Yes,
Okay.
it is not fiction.
It is not fiction. None of this is fiction.
None of it.
Do you have a title for it?
Working title until somebody tells me otherwise. I literally want the same cover as No Easy Day. Same everything. I just, in Navy fashion, right? We one line words that we don't like. So I'm just going to one line day, and we're going to put way. So No Easy Way.
You run that by your attorney first?
Yeah. Well, we'll be running this by a ton of attorneys.
Okay, so No Easy Way.
Yeah. And it's
kind of
just-
catchy.
It's talking about my transition then out of the military, right? First book is what it is. Second book was kind of lessons learned. Third book is,
Right.
okay, what the heck happened to Mark Owen after the publication of No Easy Day? I talk a lot about my legal period, and then just a
Okay.
lot about my personal, emotional, physical transition.
Right. So tell us about that. What of the emotional, physical transition? Because you went from book 1 to book 2, and then at what point did you get into TV? Because we kind of touched on it, but you're executive producer for SEAL Team on CBS Paramount and Paramount Plus and have been, and you guys just wrapped or are about to wrap the final season 7.
Yeah,
right?
the whole
Season
the whole
7, wow.
TV thing we got super lucky with, right? I never in a million years thought I would transition my Navy SEAL career into being an author or anything in the entertainment world at all. Furthest from my mind. But people had read the book and wanted to it opened the door for some meetings. And so I've met with a whole bunch of people in the entertainment industry, and some of the smarter ones were like, hey, what does Hollywood do wrong with military content?
Right.
So that was a great question. I'm like, great. It's not just the Rambo shoot 'em up moments. I've done plenty of that. Great. But how do you stay married and try and raise kids? And
Right.
where's the balance in all of that?
And the show, you and the show and the writers, you guys have done an amazing job. I mean, like I'm obsessed with the show. My girls are obsessed with the show.
Well, the reason it works so well is because CBS, where we started, backed me up in that. The idea that, hey, we
Right.
need to hire veterans. So we mentioned Tyler Gray a minute ago, right? If you know Tyler, he's not only been an actor, stunt stuff, right? He's done tech advising. He's even directed episodes. So
Wow.
we have hundreds of veterans across.
And that
the
helps, I would
production.
imagine, with the flavor of the
All of
show. But like you've really, there is a human side to the show
That wouldn't come out if we didn't have the veterans rubbing off on it.
that I've never seen before on any military show, movie, or whatever. Not at least not to the extent.
Hollywood's never empowered the veterans. They're always like, veteran, go stand in the corner and tell us how to wear the uniform. Not, hey, how do you come back from a mission where maybe one of your buddies just died, and then you guys have to talk about it, and then you're going to go notify his wife. Like, I've had to do all of the things that are in the show.
Right.
90% of it's based off real stuff we've all been through that's just thrown in and
all the while
mixed up.
Trying to maintain a family, right? Because you have family, and you were dealing with, you had kids while you were deployed.
Every SEAL knows they're going to go to combat and deal with SEAL stuff. That's the easy, that's the expected, that's the known. What's harder in the unknown is dealing with family and your kids and all this other stuff. Like, that's, unfortunately, they're not the priority.
Right. I mean,
the
like,
priority
like
staying alive doing the SEAL stuff.
Right. And you were doing what you had to do. And for me, if my job required that I was away for 6 months and I couldn't have dinner with my family, I don't know that I could do that.
Yeah.
I mean, like, how do you come to terms with that?
You just do. Cause if you don't, I wouldn't have made it through SEAL training had I lacked the commitment. You know, early on what it's going to take, and it's going to take all of you. It's going to leave nothing left. Like, if look at any pro athlete who was at the very top of their game, they had nothing else but that. Nothing.
Right.
I had nothing else but the SEALs and the teams around me, and that was it. I was absolutely 100% institutionalized. I didn't hang out with anybody outside my team. You can't relate. How would you relate? Now I'm not a SEAL. I've been a SEAL for years, right? Your titles evolve and change, and I don't.
You're a boring civilian.
A SEAL.
I don't look at myself as always a SEAL.
Well, why you put the time, you put the dedication, you put the hard work. You know.
I did. It doesn't mean I didn't have the title, but I don't retain that title now, and nor do I want that title now.
Okay.
I did that. I've done that. I checked every box in that world.
But there's something to be said, I think, of it sort of defines your identity to some extent, right? I mean, at least it did for a long period of time. I mean, yes. I identify as a surgeon, right? I mean, it's not it's not like I'm going around
it's
saving people with heart attacks on airplanes all the time.
But when you cease to do that job and then still consider yourself a surgeon, 20 years from your last surgery, are you going to call yourself a surgeon? Or are you going to be like, no, I'm a father, a husband, a business owner, whatever.
I hear you.
I hear that.
And so for me, when I was in the SEALs, that defined me 100%. 100%. I lived that to a T. That's why that's why I got to the levels that I did. I would give anything to do it. I sacrificed everything to get to those levels. But the second I got out, I haven't been a SEAL since then.
I can see that point of view. I never thought of it that way. And
the most balanced, most transitioned veterans that I know are not still trying to be the SEAL they were. They're trying to figure out what they should be next. They're not just continuing to live in the good old days. Back in high school, I was the quarterback. Right. You're not in high school anymore.
Right. That makes sense. I never thought of it in that perspective. I always would think, like, once you put in that dedication, that you deserve that honor.
Almost like
sure.
once you're board certified, you're always board certified.
Yeah.
I got the tattoo. That'll work.
Can you share any antidotes?
You don't need to show us.
Can you share any anecdotes or any moment in the military that had a profound effect on you? Like, is there one pivotal moment that was like, holy shit?
I've had thousands of those moments that are like, wow, that's deep. So I don't know.
Can you tell us
pick
any?
Just one? it'd be hard. It'd be devaluing some of the others to put like one. I don't know. I've had thousands of crazy experiences.
Well, and one of them, and we kind of touch on this, one of them, and I think it's in No Easy Day, one of the early chapters of No Easy Day, you talk about an early mission you were on. I think it was maybe your first deployment on SEAL Team 6 with you, and that was your first kill. Am I remembering that right?
Yeah, but like, taking a life is a big deal, right? Any veteran who gets on here talks cool about shooting people, probably they've never done it. right? It's a big deal to take somebody's life, plain and simple,
Right.
period. Bad guy, whatever. And so anybody who just, I think, plays that off is
Well, yeah, I mean, like when I was a surgery resident, I there was a thing about when you're on call at night, like I was determined to not let anyone die on my watch. That was always a thing for me. And so like I did whatever I had to and learned and read and whatever I had to in order to be the best in critical care or whatever it was, so that, you know, it was kind of a saying in surgery residency, like keep them alive till 7:05 when your relief shift comes in, you know. So it was like I'm not letting anyone die, and if someone did, that was a big fucking deal, right?
Yeah.
And it's like you feel like you've let down everybody.
Yeah.
Even though oftentimes
death on
it's
our
beyond
side
your
was
control.
a little different, right? Death, if you caused it, you're shooting other people, that's a different death, right? If one of your boys gets
right.
killed, that's it's just different, dealing with all of it and just the emotions around all of that. And yeah, it's a lot.
And how many times do you estimate that happened to you while you were deployed? Like someone on your team or one of the squadrons you were physically on the mission with?
I put it in No Hero, and the number's gone up since then, but I think I got 43. If I go through the contact list of my cell phone, I have 43 contacts that are dead. Right. We've lost way more than 43 Navy SEALs since 9/11.
Right.
But I knew 43 of them had their numbers in my phone, and now I can't take them out.
You're writing about all of this and the human side of warfare, because you're writing about the human side of warfare. Can you speak the importance about portraying the human experience in a war, you know, and the chaos of combat? Because I think, you know, TV has almost like desensitized war in a way. Could you touch on the humanity part of
everything's
it?
sensationalized these days, right? Whether
Right.
it's the movies or books or whatever. I've tried very, 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 very hard to make sure, whether it's the books that I'm involved in or even the TV stuff, is as authentic as possible.
Right.
Right. That's it. That's all you can do.
And that's what
and you don't need to try, and so many people try and make their stories even bigger or more crazy, or like, don't, just keep it authentic and real.
When you are writing, I don't know how much writing you do for the show, or writing in your book, how did you grapple with the responsibility of representing not just your experience but those around you? Like, is that a challenge to represent your brothers in an honest but
I don't think it's that
light?
challenging. I had a whole bunch of crazy teammates that are just amazing people. So to find those tidbits and stories and put in the writing or put in the show, I think that's easy.
Have you, since leaving the Navy, have you been involved in, well, I know you have been involved in, because we're involved in one together, but what sort of charity types of, or military related types of organizations are you involved with?
Yep.
Because I know that's a big deal to you to kind of give back, right?
Yeah, no, it's huge, right? You don't live a career of service and then get out and it's something different. There's an organization called Special Operations Care Fund, SOCF. That's one of them that I'm involved with. That was formed after a guy on my team named Brett Shadle died in a parachute training accident, and SOCF was born. So I'm very involved in that organization.
And what's their mission?
They raise funds for the special operations units and kind of the 3-letter agency guys. And they help support everything from marriage and family counseling to some of the mental health stuff that they're really treating, to some of the new psychedelic treatment programs that are going. They raise money for all of that. That's kind of the futuristic, cutting edge treatment modalities.
Yeah, there's a lot of great treatments right now.
So that
reminds me a little. It's very similar to Station Foundation. You're familiar with Station Foundation, right? Because we were at that event and I met Matt Wellborn, and prior to that, Matt had introduced me to Kevin and Shannon Stacy, and they run that. They're out of Bozeman.
Yep.
But it's similar. They're more of a reintegration.
Yep.
Situation.
I mean, I think a lot of people see the similar needs, right? It's the reintegration piece, the mental health piece. You and I have a mutual friend, Doc Bray.
Right. It's kind of goes back to how we originally crossed paths in the first place. Was he started Valor for Life, right?
After working on me, right? I'd got out, went to the VA, knew I had a whole bunch of neck and back issues from our hard helicopter landing.
Which, and I'm just going to say this, which the VA system didn't really take seriously enough to follow through on your workup. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not a doctor. I don't know the system. I just know I went and
I do. I've worked in VAs and I know how it is. And it's, it's astounding to me that they spend millions and millions and millions of dollars training each and every one of you, and then you get hurt and they won't lift a finger to help.
I felt the appropriate medical care when I was in the second, because I was attached to the high level and we had high level medical care. The second you join the VA system, it's just the VA system, and then it's lowest common denominator.
So you found it necessary to seek out care outside of that system, right?
I tried that system because I was dealing with all my government stuff and I didn't have money to pay for my own medical care. So I had earned the right for VA medical care and I was going to use it. And so I kept going back to my VA doc and I never even got an MRI. Right. I got bags full of pain meds. And after my third round of that, I remember my parents were in town visiting and I showed my mom the amount of medication that I had been prescribed for, man, my neck hurts. I can't drink a beer without my arm going numb, tingling down my legs, etc. And I never got an MRI. I just got all these meds. And so that's when.
And how did you end up in Dr. Bray's office?
A friend of mine in Los Angeles was like, hey, I've got a friend. He's a former Air Force trained neck and back surgeon. He's got his own facility. He's not a big hospital. I think he might be able to help you. And since he's a veteran, maybe he'll be interested in, doing something pro bono. Then at this point, I was like, hey, I'll take anything. So meeting with Doc Bray was set, rolled into his office. He, literally before I met him, I check in there, boom, go get your x-ray, 2 doors down, go get your MRI, 3 doors down. And 30, an hour later, I'm sitting in the office and the doc walks in and I'd had MRI, x-rays. And now I'm sitting with the doc. It'd been a year and a half with the VA. I'd got none of that.
Right.
And he's like, clear your schedule. We gotta fuse this next week.
Right.
So that was the first of 5. And through that process,
first of 5 surgeries that you had with
Doc
Bray. Okay.
And then that's kind of where Valor for Life was formed. And we have mutual friends that he's also worked on.
Right.
And it's just kind of grown and grown.
And what, but so how did that come to be though? You were just I have other former, other retirees who need help just the same way.
Yeah. I mean, it came to be that Doc Bray was willing to open up his office and say, hey, I have a facility, I have resources, I can help. So it started there and it continued. I don't have the resources. I just know the guys who need help, who weren't getting it through the VA. And so, after I was healthier and continuing to get more and more healthy, I'd talk to other friends, veteran friends that were having issues with their medical stuff. And so at first it kind of just started with me calling Doc again and being like, hey Doc, Jack's having issues with his back, or Walt or some of these other people, can they come out and take a look? He's like, yeah, sure. So then he saw so much of a need and he kept hearing the same story over and over and over again that a lot of us just weren't getting the care we should have gotten, should have earned. So Valor for Life was born and
the rest is history.
Yeah. And now you're right. 10 different guys that I've worked with, Rob's worked on.
And we're trying to expand it, but I did my first non-spine orthopedic surgery case for through Valor for Life for a patient. And we're trying to expand that, but it's I think we need someone to run the organization is the problem.
Well, I like the organizations that are smaller and more strategic, and that's what I think special operations forces are used to.
Yeah,
all the 501c3s I'm involved with are small, strategic, but have a huge impact.
Right. I like that. All right.
Well, great. I think we're going to take a break at this point, and then we'll pick up in about 5 minutes.
Thanks so much for listening to Beyond the OR with Dr. Brenner. Make sure to subscribe, like, and follow so you don't miss any future episodes. In the meantime, hit me up on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Kevin Brenner MD and KevinBrennerMD.com.